Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we're going to read from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, text number 20, and from 20 all the way to 25. Okay. I've got some more Bhagavad Gitas here. If anyone likes to take a Bhagavad Gita to read, we can read it online if you want. I'm gonna read from my phone because my eyesight isn't good enough for the small print anymore. Amaginatimirandasya jana jana shalakaya chakshurandanitam yena tasmai shri guru namaha. Shritanya manobhishtam sthapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kadamaya dadati sahavam. So we're going to start with text number 20. And I'll read the Sanskrit. Anyone good at reading Sanskrit? Anyway, we can read together if you want to join. Atavyavastitan drishtva tartarastram kapidvija pravrite shashta shampute dano ud yam yapandava rishikesham tadavakyam idama took up his bow and prepared to shoot arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Is everyone okay? Everyone's got the place? Okay, good, good. Okay. So, I just want to ask a question. Question is, what signs are there that the likelihood of the victory of the battle is going to be with Arjuna? What signs are there?
Krishna is on his side.
Krishna's on his side, yes, that's a very good sign.
Yeah.
And that's very true. What else? There's one other sign that's mentioned there. Hanuman is on the flag, yes. So when Hanuman is on the flag, and Lord Krishna is on the chariot, so Lord Ramachandra is on the chariot as well. So it looks like there's going to be victory. So now we read the purport. This is very important, this purport. The battle was just about to begin. It is understood from the above statement that the sons of Dhritarashtra were more or less disheartened by the unexpected arrangement of military force by the Pandavas, who were guided by the direct instructions of Lord Krishna on the battlefield. The emblem of Hanuman on the flag of Arjuna is another sign of victory, because Hanuman cooperated with Lord Rama in the battle between Rama and Ravana. Lord Rama engaged victorious. Now both Rama and Hanuman were present on the chariot of Arjuna to help him. Lord Krishna is Rama himself, and wherever Lord Rama is, his eternal servitor, Hanuman, and his eternal consort, Sita, the goddess of fortune, are present. Therefore, Arjuna had no cause to fear any enemies whatsoever. And above all, the Lord of the senses, Lord Krishna, was personally present to give him direction. Thus all good counsel was available to Arjuna in the matter of executing the battle. In such auspicious conditions, arranged by the Lord for his eternal devotee, lay the signs of assured victory. In the purport there is there's another. Well, there's what is the other indication that there would be victory on the side of the Pandavas? There's one other indication. Anyone know? Which is that? Kurukshetra. No, that's true. Yeah, definitely. There's another one mentioned here though. That was mentioned in purport. What? No, yeah, that was earlier. That's true. It's earlier. Rama, that's close. There's one more. It's mentioned in the purport. Yes, it's Sita, all right. It's an expansion of Sita called the goddess of fortune in that sense. Yeah, yeah. So that's true because the goddess of fortune is going to be there also. So that's another sign that it's going to be victorious. You know? We've got everybody on the side, all the important people in there. So. Okay, that's good. Yes. So the Lord of the senses is here, Rishikesh, and so Krishna is the controller of the senses. So if you could listen kind of carefully on this one, Krishna is the controller of the senses, and our duty is to surrender to Krishna, and that means that Krishna will control our senses, because as we discussed, that if we're not in control of our senses, then the mind has full sway to direct us wherever it wants, and the mind is like the five horses in a chariot. They're uncontrolled, they can go anywhere. So there's no actual control of the senses. So in that way, if we don't have Krishna as the controller of the senses will direct us wherever it wants, and generally that will mean that we will be directed towards repeated birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. So what we're doing here, and what Arjuna is going to learn, because Arjuna is thinking, I know what to do here. I'm not going to fight because I don't think it's the right thing to do. So Arjuna is being influenced by his mind, but at the same time, it's done in a Leela kind of way. It's not actually Arjuna is doing this with the understanding that Krishna is putting him temporarily in illusion. So do you understand that? Krishna is putting Arjuna temporarily in illusion so that we can learn how we should act. Because ultimately, the Bhagavad Gita is meant for us. We're on the chariot as well. And Krishna is teaching us. And he is, we need to listen to Krishna, who's in our heart. Krishna's there in our heart. We need to hear Krishna. But in general, the problem is that we can't hear Krishna. We're not qualified sufficiently to hear Krishna, and that is why we have these discussions, because it will help us become qualified to hear Krishna. And the more that we discuss Krishna between ourselves, then the more that Krishna will be present in our lives. And even the best of all is Krishna's in our lives in a kind of a community scenario, because then we will encourage each other all the time, to hear Krishna. We'll be always, giving each other incentive to hear Krishna. We'll be talking about Krishna. We'll speak of that Satitam Kirtayantamam That means that always chanting my glories. It's in the 9th chapter, the verse 14 of the Bhagavad Gita, is that devotees are always chanting about Krishna. And because when we hear about Krishna, then we will be on the transcendental platform. Because Krishna is, transcendental. He's beyond the material modes of nature. He's the controller, in fact, of the modes of nature. And he's also the knower of everything. And so when we're in contact with Krishna, then we will be more on this transcendental platform. And we will be able to understand things as they are. And on top of that, we will be able to understand things as they are, and we'll be able to hear Krishna. Because the problem is that we don't hear Krishna, and then Krishna says if we don't hear him, then we'll be lost. We'll be lost in the whole material world, like in the whole pool of birth and death and birth and death. So this whole exercise here today, and Bhagavad Gita in general, is to make sure that we're steady and strong, and not be influenced by material energy, and be more influenced by the spiritual energy, so that we will not take birth again in this material world. So that is the goal here, and it's also the goal to hear Bhagavad Gita every day, because we hear so many other things every day, isn't it? We hear about the news, we hear about what's happening in all the different countries of the world. Generally, we hear about bad news as well. So the Kali Yuga doesn't have too much good news going on. It's generally kind of negative stories and whatever. So the mind can get affected by that, and we can get affected by that. But the news of the spiritual world is always positive news. It's it's news of what's actually happening in the spiritual dimension. And as we progress more and more in Krishna consciousness, we will get the opportunities to go deeper and deeper into the spiritual dimension and get more clarity about what's actually there. And then our desire to go there will be stronger and stronger. That means that we will be able to give up the lower taste only by experiencing a higher taste. Because, it's impossible to give up a lower taste unless we have something to substitute it. Because we are, by nature, always looking for taste. That's the nature of the living entity, and that's who we are. But the difficulty is when we spend our time just seeking tastes which are not transcendental. And it's very easy to do, because we're being attacked from the outside, from the material energy, the material world, Kali Yuga, and from the inside by our conditioning from our previous lifetimes. Our previous habits have been affected by lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. All of those wonderful little items which are going on internally, which are also trying to vie for our attention, And in fact, what happens is that we come under the control of these things, and these things then dictate how we act, and then which means that we further and further create difficulty for ourselves and keep us here in the material world, entangled in the material world. Unfortunately, it's a bit like a jail sentence, and birth, death, disease, and old age are keeping us in the prison house. And but the fact is that even while in the prison house, Jivan Mukta says, Jivan Mukta is, I'm not going to remember the stress, but it means that we're liberated even while in the material world. And that is the process of bhakti yoga. That is the process which we're trying to master here, to become bhakti yogis. So, is there any comments? Anyone would like to add anything? Yes.
One question. You said that we either are influenced by the energy of Krishna or we're influenced by material energy. So how can one understand that he or she is influenced by the material energy?
Okay, so the question. Yeah. How does one know that one is influenced by the material energy and not the spiritual energy? I think there's a few ways that one could answer that. This is a very important question. It is, because we're not always aware when we're doing something. Is this spiritual? Is this material? Am I doing something which is liberating, or am I doing something which is entangling? And probably that's a definition of the modes of goodness, is that one knows what is binding and what is which is the ability to free one. So that explains to us that is to try to live in the mode of goodness is important. Is to engage in activities of goodness with determination, enthusiasm, and with patience as well. One of the things which again comes to mind for me is that one of the ways that we can help ourselves be in the mode of goodness is to have a very strong spiritual program in the morning time before anything else happens. That definitely gives us a lot more strength to be spiritual throughout the day. And I don't know, I can give an example because people are working in different occupations. So in my occupation, sometimes I have to be on the computer a bit, and it's all about kind of nitty-gritty, very minute details of filling in forms of and answering questions regarding so many different policy matters, and so that tends to, you when you get into something, you kind of get distracted by it. So it's is this spiritual or is this not spiritual? Because we're always trying to be. Prabhupada says 24 hours a day in Krishna consciousness. That's the goal. We want to be 24 hours a day. So I find that sometimes you have to give your mind a break, from those type of things. And usually in work situations you can get a little break. Or then if you can turn towards a spiritual thing, like have the Bhagavad Gita open, continue on a class that you're listening to, or what else? It's harder to go and take a break and chant Hare Krishna, but read a little bit of. There's a devotee website called Dandavats, and there's little things on that about you can get into a lecture by somebody or just read something spiritual. So having one's breaks like that's helpful. But spiritual life is very important in two ways. You do things which are favourable to Krishna consciousness, and you avoid things which are unfavourable to Krishna consciousness. Because I don't always win that battle. Sometimes I just get into what's happening with the latest in the news or something like that, or which again you could say is not, you could say you need to know these certain things about what's going on, but in general it tends to be a kind of a more of a negative kind of, I'm spending that spare time I have to do something which is not, favourable to Krishna consciousness. So therefore it's important to do things which are favourable and to avoid things which are unfavourable. And that, what really is needed there is Ba, is Lord Balaram, is strength. We need spiritual strength. And that will give us the power then not to do the things which are unfavourable, And I think the mode of passion is you doing things which are binding, basically they're binding. It's a lack of, you're becoming attached to fruitive things. Like fruitive means generally just enjoyment. I want to enjoy the senses. I want to hear this. I want to do this. I want this. And I want. It's I want, and it's I. And so, but the mode of goodness allows you to recognize when that I is really going very, very strongly, like which is the false ego. When that I is, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want that, and we're always in the internal dialogue that's going on within us. The I is going on all the time. So that's probably another way that you can spot it as well, just to see what's going on. Or is the I very prominent in the things that are going on in the mind on that level? And but the evening time then after the morning, very good morning program. Then people will go and do their occupation for the day, and then later on in the evening time we'll go back into the spiritual dimension as well. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to add on, is it
Yes.
unfavorable to associate with non-devotees? So let's say if I go for a lunch with a colleague, and
Yes.
the colleague is not a devotee,
Yes.
and I'm eating outside in a restaurant which is not
Yes.
Govinda, so
Yeah.
is that unfavorable if I say that I'm practicing Krishna consciousness on one side,
Yeah.
and on the other side I associate myself.
Yeah.
So like there's a dilemma in the mind. So how
Yes. Yeah, there's a dilemma in the mind, especially because if you're in a working situation,
Yeah.
unless you're working in this where all devotees are around you, or you're in the spiritual job or something like that.
Is it
95%
or it's not?
we will be in that situation that you're mentioning, and the devotees, I think the important thing is to eventually, to gradually, become as Krishna conscious as you can in those situations. But you could be falsely renouncing sometimes, because in your job you may need to go out with your colleagues. You may need to sometimes be in a situation whereby you're not in a totally sattvic environment or whatever. you know.
So it's okay, right? If it's okay,
If-
you have to go for.
If you have to go, yes, that because
you have to
it's
go for fines. You don't drink, but like if like your
Yeah.
manager is asking you, you
yes,
can't just like I can't take out my bead bag, and because they don't understand
the,
at
yes,
all, and they're Indians, but still they don't
Yes.
understand. So
yeah,
there's this confusion
Yeah.
in my mind that should I go or not.
yeah,
But at the end, I went to the pub, and
Yeah.
then I didn't drink, but then.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking, will Krishna be angry or that on one side you are chanting, but on the other side you are going to the pub? I don't know.
yeah. Well, I think the most important thing you said there is that you're not drinking when you're going to the pub. That's good.
It's a non-alcoholic
Yeah.
something.
No, but I have sometimes that situation where in my occupation I'm kind of looking sometimes I can avoid a lot of that. Sometimes when I go to an art fair, at the end of the art fair, all the different people get together and what do they normally do? They have a meal and so somehow or other I say, oh, I have an appointment somewhere, I have to go somewhere. And usually it happens on a Saturday night in London. And what I usually do is I go into the centre of London and get involved in Harinam. So that's not the situation everywhere. No. But at other times I have an artist that might come into the gallery, and he wants to go to start. I won't say the name, but a coffee shop, shall we say? Because we have to discuss different terms and things like that. So that I might get a herbal tea or something when I'm there, and just go through different things with it, But I think that you have to be practical. Prabhupada says you have to be very practical. Your job is important, and it's you do that to maintain yourself, and you maintain your Krishna consciousness, you maintain your house. So and you have an altar in your house or something, you have Bhagavad Gita there, and so that this house becomes a temple. So you're maintaining the temple. So it's not ideal circumstances in this world today. And in fact, most occupations have to do with the 4 sinful activities. No gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating. So I would say that it's good for you to weigh up each situation each time very calmly. Not to be in a tizzy or something, but and then you make a decision. And then afterwards you review the decision. Was that absolutely essential? And you can say, yeah, it was because I needed to. Because, sometimes people, your colleagues would think if you don't mix with them, they'll think you're, oh, what's wrong with this person?
So like,
Yeah.
you're the vegetarian, you're the only one in the vegetarian among 10 people, and
Yeah.
they just look at you, you're a vegetarian.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
But now I just shut up,
But there is a other side of the coin.
Yes.
If you are meeting with like other people who are not into this, but why don't you think like this? When they interact with you, even they can follow your path. Instead, you are saying I might follow them or but you can follow, but they get also influenced by you. Like how is it into this path, going into this path?
I think it's a very good point, and then I found that as well, that when you're with somebody, they start to ask questions as well sometimes, or then they will notice something as well, and then gradually you could start to introduce something. Not everyone will take to it, some people won't, but it is a good opportunity as well.
I had many friends, who started following, me who were not into it.
Right.
So just by, mixing up with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely, it can definitely happen like that as well. So that's the good thing, is to review each scenario and then say, maybe I could do better the next time. Maybe I will say something to this person because they were asking me, or and start to gradually kind of work. It depends on each particular circumstance, but yeah, if the opportunity's there, and
Yeah, I'm trying, because I myself I'm new, so I'm still figuring out and getting stronger in my own spiritual practice, and then I meet these people and I have to go out with them and interact with them. Then in your mind you have doubts that either you do this or you do that. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's a dilemma. Well, that it's the same thing. Krishna is always putting us to a test like that. So he's checking and it's making you stronger. That's what I was mentioning about Balaram. Balaram will give you strength compared to Lord Balaram. He gives you, or Lord Nityananda. That the Gorditai, we pray to them for strength. And then there's amazing what we can do. There's amazing things we can do. Very good question. Yeah. Okay, we'll just, because I'm just looking at the time, we'll just move on to the next text. So we're on, the next is two verses together, 121 and 122. So we can have a look at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the English translation. Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies, so that I may see those present here who desire to fight, and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Purport. Although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus he is addressed herein as infallible. As charioteer, he had to carry out the orders of Arjuna, and since he did not hesitate to do so, he is addressed as infallible. Although he had accepted the position of a charioteer for his devotee, his supreme position was not challenged. In all circumstances, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hrishikesh, the Lord of the total senses. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. He takes greater pleasure in his pure devotees assuming the advantageous position of ordering him than he does in being the giver of orders. Since he is master, everyone is under his orders, and no one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is the infallible master in all circumstances. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna had no desire to fight with his cousins and brothers, but he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of a Duryodhana who was never agreeable to any peaceful negotiation. Therefore, he was very anxious to see who the leading persons present on the battlefield were. Although there was no question of a peacemaking endeavor on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war. Okay, so there were a lot of points mentioned there. Could anyone speak on one or 2 points that they heard from that?
That Krishna has no problem with being ordered by his devotees, although he is the supreme.
Yeah, that was it. And Krishna has no problem in being ordered by others, even though he is the supreme. But what's the qualification to be ordered by others? That it's
they have to be devotees.
Pure devotees. Yes, very good. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. Anyone else? Any that was the major. There's, but I just wanted just to build on that just a little bit, and because it's very important like we talked about this, talking about the age of Kali. One of the predominant aspects of Kali is that, and it says in the Bhagavad, it is an age of quarrel, Maya, yes, quarrel and hypocrisy, quarrel and hypocrisy. But there's another aspect that's mentioned, and it's called faithlessness. It's an atmosphere of faithlessness. There's so much faithlessness about it. And what was being talked about there in the purport is wonderful faith, in the sense that the devotee was reciprocating with Krishna, you know, and it was a very, anyone remember what type of reciprocation is it? A bad reciprocation, or is it, there's one word that was used?
Loving.
Loving, yes, yes. And intimate, you know. And he never fails in his affection for his devotees. In all circumstances, the Supreme Lord, the relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. So isn't that incredibly opposite to faithlessness? And that is what is guaranteed when one reads the Srimad Bhagavatam. One develops a loving relationship with Krishna, with God. And that's that's a rare thing these days. I mean, it's a lot more rare than it used to be. And the reason that I'm highlighting that is because a lot of people ask the question, why do bad things happen to good people? That's one of the questions they ask. Another question is, why is the world so difficult? Why is there always war? How could there be a God? You know, here comes the doubting. How could there be a God which allows all of these things to happen? So my answer to that, actually, is first develop a loving relationship with God, and then you know that God is all loving. Because you may not be able to answer that question fully for somebody who is completely distraught or distressed, in a distressed condition. And because that's my view, like, I don't think you can. And that's why you will have these kind of doubts and this faithlessness. But if you actually genuinely develop your love of God, your relationship with God, and I'm talking about an intimate relationship with God. I mean, it's not that it happens straight away. It takes time for it to happen. But you will be convinced of your relationship with God, because God is reciprocating with us all the time. You know, we may not be aware of it, but when we develop our transcendental vision, then we'll see God in everything. Krishna says, "For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me." And that's in the 6th chapter, verse number 30. So we'll see God in everything, even if something. And just one other point I'll make is that our tendency then is to blame everybody on anything that goes wrong with us. That wasn't, why did he say that? She said that. That's the problem. It wasn't me. I didn't do that. I actually didn't do that at all. And you're blaming me for it. So, you know, the tendency is to find a reason why we're right and the circumstances that we're in is wrong. But when we actually develop a spiritual vision, we will see that all those circumstances are 100% correct and arranged by God. You know, but it really depends on our response to those situations, as difficult as they may be from time to time, and they are difficult. But yeah.
I would like to know the meaning of a pure devotee.
Pure devotee, okay. The verse that's used that from Uga Goswami, Anya Vilasita Sunyam Kelana Karma Janavita Anukulena Krishna Shiran Bhakti. It's a very important question, it's a very important verse, and it's like the main acharya of our line. He is one of the most stressed verses. And it means that we're not into, a pure devotee is one who's not into fruitive activity, you know, looking for something for himself or for herself. That's a pure devotee, that's the main thing. That one is a servant of the servant. Also another is not into just trying to speculate and knowing what the world is like for his own benefit. You know, because we all actually try to find out what's actually happening. But a pure devotee, he will take the advice from Bhagavad Gita 4:34, and it's just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. and render service and inquiries, because the spiritual master can give knowledge unto you because he's seen the truth. So the pure devotee is the pure devotee can give knowledge to you, but because he has received knowledge, pure knowledge, in that sense. So it's a kind of a line of the cyclic succession. You're getting actually nothing which has been altered. It's considered to be what's the word? Transparent. The message from Krishna is coming all the way through to all of us, but it does it via it becomes through the line of the succession, and the succession is not interrupted because there is no people taking things for themselves. It's transparent. So a pure devotee is a person who can give you pure knowledge and who is not affected by karma jnana, and who is he is unmotivated. His service is unmotivated and is unmotivated. There's all different stages of the nectar of instruction, and in the nectar of instruction, it's explained that people, when they're practicing spiritual life, at the beginning, they have at the beginning of spiritual life, they will get some glimpse of Krishna consciousness, and then they'll sink, and then another glimpse, and eventually it gets longer and longer and longer. And then eventually, pure devotee is somebody who's 24 hours constantly aware of Krishna, is seeing Krishna all the time. Shakchus, he's seeing through the eyes of Scripture, and he is fully devoted to Krishna all the time. That's some description. It's always important to keep on looking for a heart of gold, as the song went. We didn't get through all the verses actually. We only got to 122. We were to get 23, 24, 25. I think probably for next week, we might go for 23 to 30, because I think there's some verses that don't have perfect. Anyway, yeah. Well, I'll announce it anyway. But if anyone would like to come along again next week, we're going to start on 123 to 130, and reading it in the meantime, and then discussing it. And trying. We have a Bhagavad Gita study group on WhatsApp, and then we can discuss things further. But unfortunately, I need a bit of help to get that more set up. So, okay, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Kiki. So now we go to the next part of the program, which is chanting. I'm going to start the chanting tonight, and